Kaufman is alive. I look at comic books new and old. Thanks for joining me today. Today I'm looking at a new comic book, Spider-Man and Wolverine, issue number 5 by Marvel Comics. This was a $3.99 book off the rack. I've been collecting every issue of this so far since issue number 1. And I've done reviews of every issue. So go check all those videos out on my channel as well. Love this Eric Larson variant cover here for issue number 2. He actually did a variant for issue number 1 as well that I slept on, and I still need to go back and pick that one up. I love collecting Eric Larson's stuff. He's been doing a lot of work with Marvel and Spider-Man a lot recently, specifically. So, unfortunately, it's put his own self-creator owned book behind a little bit, Savage Dragons, a few months behind. But anyway, Spider-Man number 5 here. We got Mark Guggenheim doing the writing and the undeniable Kari Andrews doing the artwork on this issue. And it feels to me like they've just given him free reign to do whatever he wants in this series. He can draw whatever he wants. And then they got the writer to just kind of piece it all together and put a story to it. Because it just feels like the artist here is just drawing really cool stuff that he wants to draw. For instance, Spider-Man and Wolverine, or putting them in their classic retro costumes as well. The story starts out with kind of a flashback to this D-list villain enforcer here, and we just get a little snippet of what happened here. We don't even know really when or what was going on in the context of any of this, but just the fact that Wolverine is coming at him and about to attack him, and Spider-Man trying to stop him. And that comes into play pretty quickly here. So we pick up where we left off in issue number 4. And Peter's sister, Teresa, is here. Now, I didn't even know Peter had a sister. So here she is showing up, and she shoots Wolverine. And she thinks the same thing that Peter does at this point in the story, that Wolverine is the reason that their parents were killed. She brings up the Janus directory, which leaked this video footage showing Wolverine was there. So they are kind of retconning some things about Spider-Man's parents' death here, which I don't really like. But when we get to the end of this issue here, this does feel like a cartoon or like an episode of The Simpsons, where a lot of stuff happens within the issue, but then when you get to the end, everything just goes back to the status quo, and it's almost like nothing even happened at all. I guess there are a couple things leading out of this that could play into future storylines, but for the most part, everything just kind of goes back to normal. Even the fact that Spider-Man, way back at the end of the first, or it might have been the second issue, Wolverine just stabbed Spider-Man right through the gut. So Spider-Man's been going around with this like gut wound all through all these issues here, which isn't really brought up. It doesn't really come into play here. There's actually a lot of stuff now that we're at the end and I've gotten through the entire story. There's a bunch of stuff that happened between issues 2 and 5 that just seemed like filler. Doesn't really make a whole lot of sense why it was happening or anything. Like the whole teleportation wristbands that Spider-Man and Wolverine all had, and they were teleporting like to Russia and all over the world, and Dr. Octopus was there. Seemed very random. Now looking back, didn't really add up to a whole lot. And like I said, it just felt like the artist was just drawing really cool stuff. Like maybe he wanted to draw Dr. Octopus, and he wanted to draw Omega Red, and he wanted to draw Kraven. He had this design for this character that he possibly designed. I don't know, but Mr. Generic here, DREADSHADOW, he just seems like a very generic 90s villain to me. He's even got like the Rob Liefeld like sword in the back there, cybernetic arms. And Kari Andrews always does like a Joe Madureira exaggerated, upper body and muscles and stuff. And we get that too here with this character. And I was almost thinking, he kind of looks like a jacked up version of Paul. from the Spider-Man comics. Mary Jane's now ex-boyfriend, but I almost wonder if he was designed originally as some sort of version of Paul coming to get some revenge on Peter Parker. That's not what they do here. We actually learn that this DREADSHADOW's daughter was killed. He says, "My daughter's dead because of you." And he shoots all these missiles out of his arms. We find out that when Spider-Man and Wolverine were taking on Enforcer, they put him in jail. Okay, so try and follow me here. They stop Enforcer, they put him in jail, but then once he gets out of jail, he goes on a crime spree and ends up murdering DREADSHADOW's daughter. And this DREADSHADOW, he worked for S.H.I.E.L.D., which is why he has all these weapons and everything and fighting ability. So we see that here, and he was able to get a hold of the Janus directory. And he said his problem was just trying to get it in front of both Spider-Man and Wolverine to pit them against each other. But it did happen, and now he's trying to convince them that they're not heroes. And Wolverine, he's about to kill DREADSHADOW, so we kind of get the callback to what happened on that first page. And it even happened earlier here when he's about to kill Teresa, and Spider-Man yells, "Logan, don't." And he's able to stop both of them from killing each other, but that's when DREADSHADOW shows up here. And so it happens again. Wolverine's about to kill him. Some really cool pages here by Kari Andrews. I'm kind of just skipping over the artwork, but you can go watch my reviews of issues 1 through 4 and where I glaze Kari Andrews through all those videos. But so this DREADSHADOW guy, he's trying to convince these heroes that they're not heroes. And even Wolverine is just like, he's like, "I haven't the first clue what point it is you're trying to make, bub. But if it's that killing's wrong, look in a effing mirror. You think you're heroes, that you can make life and death choices? You can't." And Wolverine's like, "If you're saying I'm damned if I kill you and damned if I don't, I got to choose the first option." And Spider-Man's still trying to convince him not to do it. And we see the claws go through DREADSHADOW here, but then we see that it's actually Teresa Parker doing it. And she says, "Well, I was never a hero." So she claws him right through the chest and then just shoots him a couple more times. But like any good horror movie villain, DREADSHADOW comes back one more time. He says, "You're all so predictable." And he starts to use one of the wristbands, but if you remember back a couple issues back, Spider-Man had tinkered with these wristbands, so if they got used again, they would like malfunction. So we get that here, and it actually blows DREADSHADOW up, and all we see that's left is his arm there. So Wolverine, Spider-Man having kind of this moral conflict about whether they need to, kill villains or just bring them to justice. Spider-Man is saying, "I try to think about the consequences of what we do. I try to think about all the people in harm's way. Maybe he's got a point. Maybe we're playing God and we have no right to. And when we make mistakes, we should be held accountable." Wolverine's like, "Don't let him twist your head around like that." And Spider-Man's saying, "He didn't twist my head around. He just got me to see it from his perspective." And Teresa's like, "Peter, the two of you aren't responsible for his daughter's death," which she's right, they're not. And Wolverine says, "Ask me, being a hero means stepping up when guys like DREADSHADOW put innocent people in danger. And sometimes, yeah, that requires us playing God. DREADSHADOW just didn't like the call we made. But that doesn't mean it was the wrong one." Spider-Man's like, "I guess. Either way, we live with the consequences." So, kind of a messy moral conclusion there. It's kind of left sort of vague. But I think Spider-Man and Wolverine know they're at least trying to do the right thing, even though sometimes, bad things can happen. And Spider-Man's saying they just need to be able to live with those consequences. And then the issue kind of ends on a bit of a downer. We get a scene with Peter and his sister and Logan all witnessing this security camera footage from the Janus directory one last time. They actually finally see that Wolverine was obviously trying to save Peter's parents, and he couldn't do it. He was not actually trying to kill them. And then Teresa walks away disappointed because they mentioned Peter, but they never mentioned her. So she's saying this proves that she's actually not their daughter, and that she's the daughter of the Chameleon. And it says, go check this out in the now classic Giant Spider-Man Chameleon Conspiracy #1 back issue. So, and Spider-Man says, Kraven and the rest, they're still out there. Wolverine says they're always out there. That's like putting a genie back in the bottle. So on the final page, we see Mysterio just explaining to the other villains who are still here that even though DREADSHADOW's gone and he blew himself up and failed in his mission, the one thing that he did do correctly was bring these four all together. So kind of interesting, maybe a new Frightful Four being formed here or something. I do think that it's weird that Omega Red is here, because the last time we saw Omega Red, at least the last time I think I saw Omega Red, was in X-Force, and he was actually teaming with Wolverine, and you know, that was back on Krakoa when all the mutants were together, even the villains. But we haven't really seen what Omega Red, what's gotten in his head, you know, what's going on with him. Maybe I'm being just a little too granular here about this, the continuity of Omega Red's character or whatever, but just kind of interesting. And how many times have Kraven and Mysterio and Dr. Octopus been killed off and brought back at this point? I mean, geez. Anyway, though, I thought this was a pretty solid issue. I like that we wrapped up this storyline finally. Like I said, it was a little bit of a messy moral conclusion, but just some great artwork in here, some great action. I don't think you really need to think about the story too much. This whole series is really about the artwork. Just some of the best stuff Marvel's putting out right now, honestly. So definitely go check out all these issues 1 through 5. Issue 6 already came out. Just came out this week. I picked that up, and I'm going to have a review of that coming out soon. So thanks again for watching, and go read comics.